it's like anything, it's about balance, you know, finding that balance in life where you can be healthy, fit, strong, but also have healthy relationships with the people around you.
Yeah.
And, you know, don't let your work grind you into the ground.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to the Content Collector's Derailed Series. This week I am joined by strength and conditioning coach Ben Plenge, and we're riding in Wales, somewhere called Wiley. We do a couple of really fun runs here. Me and Ben had a great chat. We talk a little bit about his background, how he got into mountain biking. We talk quite a lot about his experience in the army, which I was just super interested in. We talk a little bit as well about his sort of transition from the army to normal life, how mountain biking helped him through that sort of transition. And we talk a lot about his kind of philosophy and approach when it comes to training, not just mountain bike athletes, but action sports athletes kind of more broadly. Big sort of takeaways for me was just the importance of keeping training fun and putting the person, making the person the priority as opposed to making like the goals or the results the priority, having a sort of human-centered approach to training. That was the takeaway for me. I think it was a really great chat. I think you're going to really enjoy it. If you do, please give the video a like. Don't have to worry about just whatever, do what you want, just enjoy the video. See you in the outro. Okay, Ben, how are you?
Morgs, yeah, really good, mate. Yeah, nice to finally meet you.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, thanks for agreeing to this, especially so last minute. I wanted to start then, you've done a few podcasts like on downtime and stuff, talked a lot about training and, you know, mountain bike related training, which I would still like to talk to you a bit about, but before we go into that, I just want to know a little bit about your background and how you got into riding and, well, just your background generally.
Yeah, so grew up in Kent, not exactly a mountain bike mecca, a bit cross country really, but you know, I guess when bikes were starting to get good in the mid-90s, that's when I started riding really, with 1995 Kona Fire Mountain, fully rigid, absolutely loved it. And then, yeah, my first forks, I got a set of...
How old are you?
95, I'd be 15 then. I was born in 1980, yeah, so I'm 41 now. Born in 1980, so 15 years old, always ridden bikes. And yeah, saved up a load of money just from doing chores and bits and bobs and birthday money. And then, yeah, that was my first proper bike. And I just, how different it was back then, because I seem to remember, I think I bought it from Wheelbase or something like that, which used to be this massive, pre-online retailer where you were in the back of MBUK and you'd be scrolling through the price lists on paper, you know, trying to figure out what bike you could get and looking at the little pictures and then my mum had to write a check that you like sent off with an order form to get the bike, so it's all a bit different now.
It's funny because even like my sort of age, I'm 26 and I got into riding just at the last, like, so my early memories of riding and like all my media was MBUK, those ads, like sending a check, persuading my dad to send a check to MBUK so I could subscribe.
Just snuck in there with that.
Yeah.
Happy days. Yeah, I mean, and so that's where it started really, and I used to ride with my cousin all the time, who was a couple of years younger, and yeah, did. But really, like, my group of friends weren't really into it. It was always just like me and my cousin on the weekends and stuff. My friends were more into football and things, but and
that's such an important part of riding. I mean, I don't know if you're the same, but for me it's definitely a very social thing, and I was the same at school. I got into it, I kind of was always drawn to those type of sports.
Yeah.
And when I first got into it in primary school, there was just, I could occasionally persuade people who were predominantly into football to come out and you know, cut some turns in the woods or whatever, but it, you know, and I was very lucky in high school, like finding other people who also wanted to do it. So that was something, do you think you would have, you didn't, as a teenager, you didn't have that many people to ride with?
Yeah, basically, but then I guess as I became a bit of an older teenager and got a bit more freedom, you then start to make friends at the woods, at the local riding spot of all different ages and backgrounds and BMX and weird like downhill hardtail riders and all sorts of different people basically. And I was definitely a bit more cross country that day, at that time.
Did you ever race cross country?
Yeah, I did a few cross country races, like the SAMs, the Southern Area Mountain Bike Series, which was a big thing back then, just in my age group. And I was quite a quite a late developer, to be honest. So
Really?
yeah, so for my age group, I was always pretty small and like not very strong and stuff, and I was relatively coordinated, for like school sport and catching and kicking and stuff. But
Yeah.
there's just no way I could compete physically, really. And
Cross
plus,
country.
yeah, plus like I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I just rode my bike and thought I'd do some racing. But I still enjoyed it,
Yeah.
even though I was right out the back probably.
Yeah.
But I do think that
Thanks.
those early races, I did from an early age, just kind of in me. I'm not sure where from or why, but have quite a good mindset for a bit of suffering.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do very well at the race, but I would definitely.
You enjoyed the suffering.
Yeah, I definitely emptied the tank.
Yeah.
So
How much of thanks for that. How, because a lot of people, especially at that age, like especially with cross country, would go to a race.
cool.
I
Thank
mean,
you.
for me, thanks a lot. Cross country, I remember going to some cross country races when I first got into it, and it was just like suffer fest, and then
Yeah.
not doing so well at them was definitely was like a detriment, or it made me less inclined to do more of it. Was that?
Yeah.
Did you
For
like
me-
fight that urge, or was it not even
Well,
something you were really thinking
It kind of wasn't an option really. Like growing up, really supportive, loving parents and home and everything. But my old man was a chef and would work most weekends, doing like the evening dinner service and stuff like that. And we had one car in the family and a younger sister. But going racing every weekend just wasn't an option. So I was just glad
that you were there?
when I could. It's like yes,
Yeah.
you just like get to do a couple in the summer, and I was just stoked to be there, like riding my bike and a day out with your old man or whatever, and and it was brilliant.
That's such a great attitude, towards doing racing. That is like the ideal. So how old were you? You got into the army, was it? Or?
Yeah, so after that I then went to uni, and that's where, before we hit the army, that's where the riding really stepped up, because then you've got like the University Mountain Bike Club and loads of people.
So you get to university.
Yeah,
there's
University of
mountain bike
Portsmouth,
clubs.
and there's the bike club, and there's all of a sudden there's like loads of people, and they ride every Wednesday afternoon, and every, I think it was Sunday morning. Well, and that would go till mid-afternoon, and someone would always turn up to ride. And I'd also got a BMX, and I lived in Portsmouth, so you had South Sea Skate Park there, and the scene that went with that. And that's where I just started riding just all the time. I'd be on a bike, every day pretty much.
That's awesome.
And my BMX was my transport
Yeah,
for when I went to lectures.
that's brilliant. What were you studying?
Oh, geography.
Geography.
Yeah, it's one of those, unless you're going to be a geography teacher, it's that subject you do if you're not sure what else to do. I think.
Yeah. It's quite broad, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's a good one though for this, some of the same reasons.
Yeah, exactly. And I enjoyed it, and I found parts of it quite interesting.
Yeah.
But like the bike club was really active, and went to student national champs every year. Had a great time. Still very much
For cross-country?
Yeah, it was always like a double event though, so there'd be cross country Saturday, downhill Sunday,
Ah, fun.
big booze up, camping in the field. Yeah, it was brilliant, But yeah, and then after that,
So really good riding scene, basically. When you
and looking back, like the riding wasn't that amazing, but Queen Elizabeth Country Park near Petersfield, South Downs, and a few other spots, but the people were good, and the bikes were so shit that pretty tame trails were pretty full on, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of like riding gravel bikes now.
That's such an important, with how good bikes have gotten,
Yeah.
it's quite relative, you know, because the bikes we grew up riding, I mean, if you were going to ride simple trails, you know, cut into the woods, the best thing to be on would be like kind of bike that made it
Yeah.
a challenge. Whereas these days, taking one of these onto just a trail that's like not had loads of work put into it isn't quite
exactly.
the same.
So, but yeah, it was just great times really, and I was just like fully into it, just really obsessed. I had a job at uni, and all the spare money went into my bike, basically trying to make it lighter, which was my mindset back then.
Yeah.
I probably could have just done with eating some better food and having a bit of structure to some training, but it is what it is really.
How big a part was the training back then? Like, how much did you get out of?
I had, at no point at that time in my life do I think I actually trained, except for before student champs every year, or before the odd race that I got to do. I would just ride more to boost my fitness, you know?
Yeah.
And it's that simple. And when you're untrained or like fairly average fitness, and you know what, I wasn't even bad state of fitness, but the biggest thing you can do is just a bit more volume really. Just ride a bit more. And as a student doing geography, I wasn't short on time to ride once, you know. It was good. So, and that's when I probably had my first few forays into the gym, and again didn't know what I was doing. I did some press ups, did some pull ups, I just remember getting on the leg press. I thought, well, I run my bike a lot, my legs are quite big.
Yeah.
I must be able to do leg press, and just getting on the machine and like maxing out the pin sort of thing, be like, oh, this is all right, and I was quite pleased.
Yeah.
I think genetically I was given some timber in the thigh department, you know. So it's all good. We go up these steps, is it? Oh, you go that way, cool. Other steps, yeah, nice.
Really?
Cheers.
Such a complicated.
Is that?
Okay. I'll start again once we get to the.
Yeah.
Okay.
YOLO.
Route got a little bit confusing there for a moment. So you were talking about, to summarise again. You're at uni. There's more of a riding scene. You're riding loads. You're a bit more sort of embedded in the culture, and then towards the end of your time there, you decide to join the army. So I was asking, what was it what inspired that?
Well, yeah, I mean, like a lot of young people, I'm 21 years old and didn't really have a clue. Coming to the end of uni, what do I want to do? Didn't really know, so I went with my housemates to the careers fair, basically at Portsmouth Guildhall, where there's 100 employers or whatever, all with their little stands and their leaflets. And I don't know why I hadn't really thought of it before, but there was the army stand, you know, how you can, you know, from university you can go and be an officer in the army and go to Sandhurst, and this is how it works, and you sign up for 3 years basically, and I was like, you know what, my entire life I basically had been obsessed with war films and stuff like that. You know, I didn't really want to watch Disney when I was a kid. I always wanted to watch cowboy films and stuff. And then when I was allowed to, when I was older, I liked watching war films, and I'd always been interested in that sort of stuff, like a lot of boys, I guess. And and I'd also, when I was younger, I'd sort of thought about and looked into joining the Royal Navy, because my grandfather on my mum's side was in the Royal Navy, and I'd always looked up to him and thought about that. But ultimately the idea of being on a ship didn't appeal. And so, yeah, I was like, you know what, I went along, I read all the stuff, and then basically there's a process you go through. It's probably a little different now, where effectively to go through the process, you have to get sponsored by like a regiment, so a part of the army. So I had a rough idea at that time that I wanted to join the infantry, which is like the fighting part, rather than like logistics or artillery or whatever, you know, there's all different parts. And so, being from Kent, I went and spoke to the Princess of Wales's Royal Regiment, who they recruit, their infantry, they recruit from Kent, home counties, London. When I spoke to them, had an interview, and they're like, yeah, no worries, we'll sponsor you. And you can do like visits, where you go and visit a unit or whatever, get a feel like, is this something I want to pursue? Had a fucking great time. Went and visited an infantry unit, not the one I was going to join, but went and visited a unit down on Salisbury Plain, stayed in the officers' mess, met some of the boys, got like taken for a drive around in a Land Rover, and you know, got to see some guns and went on the piss, and I was like sold. I was like, this is it. So it's like simple, really. Easily pleased to this day. And then basically started the process of applying. You know, it's not just a 1 hour job interview. You do like a pre-selection board where it's like, I think it's a day at the selection centre, and you do some physical tests and written tests and some interviews. Then if you pass that, you get to do the full selection, which I'm going to say was 3 days, like residential, and you do all of that but more basically. And was lucky enough, or did well that they offered me a place, because you can either pass it like I did, fail it and told never to bother coming back, or like a deferred one when I say, go and work on yourself as a person, come back in 6 months or a year and try again. But I got in, and then 6 months later, I basically spent 6 months working in a bar, and riding my BMX and basically running and doing press ups to get ready. And then 6 months later, spring 2002, rocked up to the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst with, you know, wide-eyed, like, oh shit, like, here we go. This is pretty real. Yeah, I've been like talking about it in the pub to my mates. Now it's time to walk the talk.
So what was that like? I mean, I'm really interested in this as well, because I thought a lot about joining the Marines. Before I went to university and after, because I was like, oh, like I could join as an officer, and it was like, so I think for people as well, like into these kinds of sports, people that really like training and stuff, it's really appealing.
That
like
outdoor lifestyle.
I always say, like, you know, especially like Marines in the army, they really know who they're talking to in their adverts, because like those adverts just get a certain.
Although the ads are quite woke these days, aren't they?
I haven't actually seen a lot. I remember just the last like Royal Marines advert I saw was some guy like in the water and like a spider like crawling on his face. And then it's like, I was like, holy shit, that's cool.
Funny story actually, I don't know how true it is, but it's a funny anecdote, where I think that advert, or around that time, the Royal Marines made this really hardcore advert that every Royal Marine would love who's in. And it said, Royal Marines 99.9% need not apply. And basically, and they didn't.
That's like, so funny.
It's supposed to be recruiting. And apparently that advert made it all look way too fucking gnarly.
That's funny, because I loved it. I was so like, I was like, that advert.
Well, you know what, Morgs? Maybe it's not too late. Like 26.
I think it actually is that. Also, I mean, there was a couple. I mean, I wasn't like so set on it that. And then I kind of met my girlfriend. She was like not into it, and my family were.
Mate, they're not into it until they're into it, honestly.
So what was it like? Back to you then. You're at Sandhurst. What was it like? How did your expectations compare with the reality of it?
I guess, looking back at that phase of my life, and my general approach was like really happy-go-lucky and never really thought beyond tomorrow. And so I can't really think what my expectations were, except that I was going to get shouted at, I was going to have to like march around a lot, I was going to get to shoot a gun, and hide in bushes like with a green face and stuff. Like, honestly, my expectations didn't go much beyond that, and you know, my mindset as a young man, I just wanted this adventure.
Yeah, exactly.
And to a certain extent you get it, because yes, in one sense you're in this very controlling environment where, especially when you're a brand new recruit, an officer cadet, every moment of your time is like programmed and timetabled. There's no time to yourself. Every moment of the waking day, and half the time if they just wake you up when you're in the middle of the night, if they feel like it, you're doing shit. You know, and like a lot of people, you resent a lot of the kind of like the bullshit stuff, like all the endless ironing your kit and room inspection where you've got to lay your socks out in a special way in the drawer, and there's all this nonsense, you know.
Yeah.
But it all goes to forming part of this like foundation that I do buy into now. Now I'm a bit older and wiser, you know, that it's all part of that process of taking someone and changing the way they operate, and so that they can be effective in that environment. So yeah, it's a funny one really, but you know, the best thing is, like you say with bikes, Morgs, where the best thing is the boys that I met in 24 platoon, you know. Yeah. 24 platoon, some of them are friends to this day, you know, and they'll be friends for life, you know, where you all get thrown in together and you go through this like shared hardship, highs and lows, especially when you go on exercise where, you know, you get taken out to learn how to be a soldier in the field, you know. You get taken out to some wet forestry block in Sennybridge in South Wales, or freezing cold Salisbury Plain or Scotland or wherever, and yeah, you're suffering, yeah, you're cold. Like in a 5-day exercise, you're getting a couple of hours sleep a night for 5 days. I mean, it's bonkers, really. And
did you ever serve in like Iraq or Afghanistan?
Yeah. So after that, I then joined my unit, Princess of Wales's Royal Regiment, infantry unit, and yeah, I was very fortunate with the timing, in that within a year of getting to my unit, about 6 months later, we deployed to Iraq. So I was a platoon commander of Nasty 9 platoon, bunch of fucking reprobates, but like legends, like my first platoon, because as an officer
how many people are on a platoon?
About 32.
So you're an officer
soldiers.
For these 32?
Yeah. So I'm the platoon commander, and like you've got the platoon sergeant is your right hand man, and he's you know, he's probably been in the army 10 years or so, maybe a bit longer, and he's come through the ranks from private, corporal, and so, you know, and it always sounds funny to people looking in that, you know, there I am, I've been in the army 18 months, but that's how it is. Like the officer's role is for that sort of leadership and decision making, and the platoon sergeant's role is to support that with like the administration, like make sure the ammo's there and you know, all that stuff. Yeah. But the reality isn't quite as clear cut, because you've just got to respect all their years of experience, you know, and you can't come in all authoritarian, because you'll quickly find the wrong side of the platoon. Yeah,
it's funny talking to you about this today, because I love listening to this podcast. You might have heard of him, this guy Jocko Willing.
Yeah, Jocko, yeah.
And I just listened to him doing a 6-part. Yeah, I don't know what it is about that podcast, because I don't even like. It's not like I've like been in the military or anything. I've been kind of drawn to it, but I just really like him and the guy he does it with. Anyway, they did this. He was reading this book. The last 6 podcasts have been about this book that this British guy wrote, The Psychology of Military Incompetence, and they were talking about. They were talking about the awful decisions, especially like the First World War, some awful sort of decisions in the Second World War, and then
costing like, thousands of lives.
Exactly, where that came from, and one of the big things was because it was looking at the psychology of the individuals who made those decisions. Was like an authoritarian kind of personality. And you mentioned Sandhurst and like that exact dynamic of like, you know, people who've served for like 10 years, who've seen lots of kind of war, and then they've got this like 22-year-old who they're saluting, and a certain type of person, the kind of person you want is like slightly embarrassed at a personal level about it, but kind of understands it from the bigger picture. But then some people would be attracted, like they would kind of want that.
They're like,
they want that sort of power. They want that status.
It's like the weirdest thing. Like there you are, and I'm 23 as a young second lieutenant, 23 going on 24, and you know you walk around camp and the soldiers and stuff are saluting you. Morning, sir. You know, and it's like it's this weird trip. You're like, fuck, this is really weird. And at first, you just felt so uncomfortable, and you kind of what you're told and what you know is true. It's like they're saluting the rank, not the person. You know, i.e., your position in the military, even if they don't know you. You know, which kind of makes it a bit easier. But it still feels so weird. Yeah. And then you kind of grow over time, like anything. You know, you've been taught how to do it, but then the real learning is on the job, which is where you either earn the respect or you lose the respect of the people you're working with and the people under your command and your peers, you know. So up, down, left and right, you want to do a good job and earn their respect, you know.
Totally.
Through, you know, just trying to, at the heart of it, if you're just a good bloke and competent, you're most of the way there. You don't have to be fucking Rambo, you know, or like General Patton with a brain like that. Obviously, you know, you can't be stupid either. But
so what was, I mean, it's just, what was that experience like? How many times did you go? Where were you? Like, how many times did you go out?
So,
like, what was it like?
Like Iraq, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty insane, really. Lots of people would say I was very unlucky, but to most of my peers, I was very lucky. I got a dream tour basically, where that summer 2004, we were based in Al Amara in Iraq, and we pretty much had like the most violent summer of any Iraq tour for British forces for the whole Iraq campaign, and just we were out every day, like fighting. You know, like the first 6 weeks when we got there, we were literally on the ground, like fighting every day.
Wow.
And you kind of, yes, you know you're going to Iraq, but it had been pretty chilled, really. And there'd been some shots fired and stuff as part of the, you know, there had been some fighting, obviously, as part of the actual ground war and the invasion against the Iraqi National Army, but then it'd been pretty quiet. And then there's this uprising in our area of, it's all the politics boring, but yeah, the Mahdi Army they're called. It sounds like football, hooligans. The men, we went into it and had this fucking insane operational tour, with like the tempo and the fighting and the violence was just through the roof, unprecedented, you know.
Wow.
And yeah, so like getting to do that, it sounds crazy, but it was like all my dreams come true. It really was.
And is that how it felt? Like, did it go from, because there must have been a moment when, as you say, you've done all your training and you're out there and you're actually fighting, and it's like, holy shit,
and you
like,
think, fuck,
this is real now.
Yeah, because before you go, you're thinking, oh, maybe during the tour, imagine if I got to fire my weapon once. You know, imagine just getting to fire it. And literally in the first week, I'd like been in like 5 firefights, and I'm like, fuck, like this is real.
Yeah.
I remember saying to the boys in the platoon, I'm like, this isn't Northern Ireland, which a lot of them had done. This is the real deal. Like, we need to be on our A game here, Morgs, you know, because otherwise people are going to die. And we're very fortunate, despite all of that. In the whole tour, only one member of my platoon was injured. he got some grenade shrapnel in his arse cheek, which you got to see the funny side about, and he took it like a champ. And yeah, like in my company, so was Johnson Bahari, who won the Victoria Cross.
Oh wow.
So that was a massive deal, and so we ended up being the most decorated like company in the British Army, because
Wow.
2 of my soldiers won military crosses, and a load of others got different awards.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and we just had this like dream experience that in some ways is still like the best summer of my life, which sounds like I'm some psychopath, but I'm really not. I'm a very peaceful person.
Yeah.
But it was still, I don't know what it is, but
It's like draws
yeah,
certain people to that. Yeah.
yeah, and I would have stayed longer.
How long were you in the army for?
8 years almost to the day. So yeah, but in that 8 years you do lots of jobs in the army. You
Yeah.
move around a lot. So I did I did another tour in Afghanistan, spent some time living in Germany, spent some time living in Cyprus, spent some time training army recruits, which was brilliant. Like I loved that. Like, so you're doing the shouting at these poor young lads who you picked up from the train station and trying to change them from, you know, spotty teenagers into soldiers.
Yeah.
Bit
wow.
cliche, but that's
That is
what
you're
you're
doing.
trying to do.
And how, so try and bring the conversation,
Yeah,
at
yeah.
least relate it to mountain biking.
I didn't
'cause
ride a
this is-
bike for 8 years basically,
Yeah,
and then picked it up when I left. I got out and I was like, bikes have changed a lot. Like, they actually look quite good now.
Yeah.
And I went and got a Trek Fuel EX8, like a 130mm trail bike,
Yeah.
which would feel tiny to us now, but at the time was like forward looking in its geometry and suspension. And I just remember getting this. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then I just started riding all the time. Living in London at the time, actually riding at Swinley
Oh yeah.
randomly, and just started getting back into riding, connected with a few old civvy mates who were into riding,
Yeah.
and we'd go out and we'd do some like weekends where we'd go and ride like one of the loops at Avan and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, really bit, you know, quite fit, but a bit of a wobbler to be honest, like,
Yeah.
and you know, whereas the guys I ride with now, they all got really fast
Yeah.
and learnt to like send jumps and stuff through their 20s basically, doing like Morzine trips every year,
Yeah. Yeah.
racing BDS, going to Whistler, and
then
obviously
you come back.
yeah, so at the age of 30, 31, I was like, you know, I had an idea of how to ride a bike, but really my skill level
I dropped
was
a bit.
nowhere near my enthusiasm level.
Is that around the time then you got into? I suppose what I kind of most interested in, like, talk to you a little bit about your kind of philosophy as a
Okay.
mountain bike coach now, and then maybe
Yeah.
how it was shaped by
So
that time
I
in
think that-
the army, maybe. Or?
it's hard to say. I think philosophies and approaches are generated steadily over prolonged periods of time, and just by having an open mind and reading things and speaking to people, going on courses, and then also through actually coaching and training people. Because my first few years out of the army, I ran like a fat loss boot camp for basically mums in West London in a park. Not a military style, no shouting, it was all very nicey, and did, you know, general personal training where, like that's where you actually learn your trade, you know, by just pumping out 30 sessions a week, and you figure out what's good, what's not. You look up to some coaches in the gym who've been doing it a while.
And
you're like,
how are you measuring your progress when you're doing that? Like, figuring out, you're trying to, what's the aim is to motivate people in just the right way and to help
Yeah.
them like do what they're set there or
I
achieve
think-
their goals.
yeah, so for most people at that point in my life, You're just trying to get people to look better in their pants.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, a bit leaner, a bit more muscle, if you can do that and they tell their friends, that's success, because then, you know, you're achieving the goals and you're making a good living, you know. Because in London, like, you could charge really good money for PT, and there's no shortage of people who can afford it. And so that's kind of how I measured it. And then I was like, right, I've had enough of this. Me and my now wife are spending our weekends on the M4 driving to Wales and Forest of Dean to go riding and climbing, and we're like, fuck, we need to get out of London. And NBR magazine had a reader's poll, best city to live in the UK if you're a mountain biker. Number 1 Bristol, I think number 2 Sheffield, and then 3 Edinburgh. And I was like, no offence, Edinburgh's too far. They all sound funny up there. And number 2 Sheffield we looked at, and we just did a load of weekends away. We went to Peak District, we went to Bristol, and in the end settled on Bristol. Turned up, nowhere to live, no friends, living in our van, no clue, and just started Mountain Bike Strength Factory and got my first client, Joe Finney, off the back of sponsoring the UK Gravity Enduro series at the time. Big thanks to Steve Parr for giving me a break and just letting me do it for free, basically. Got my first client. Joe became one of my best mates and riding buddies. I've been trying to keep up with him ever since. And yeah, and that's just started that trajectory to get to where we are now, where, you know, we're doing all right. And I've got some good riders and make a living and got a good balance where I can do this on a Friday, you know?
Yeah, totally. And so how does it, because now you're working with predominantly racers, I'm guessing?
Yeah, well, I've still got quite a lot of general public mountain bikers, so like people like me, kind of dads really, who they ride on the weekend, and I give them some training that helps with quality of life, and it helps them ride their bike, as well as obviously coaching the racers. Yeah.
Yeah. And what about, so I'm curious as to the difference, like, because there's two, in terms of like the importance of like exercise or whatever, there's kind of two groups of people. There's like some people that need to be persuaded to do more exercise, and that's good for them and whatever. And then there's like the, you know, the kind of people who
wind them back in.
Yeah, there's people who want to race and want a sort of structured program. Like, how much of those two different types of people have you seen, and like what's your
I see a lot of both, to be honest. But I always say, and people may be surprised with the army background, that my job isn't really to like motivate people. You know, you need to have that intrinsic motivation, I think, to do it. You know, most people have that because they've got the motivation to ride and they go riding, you know, because they love it. And I can help people find that, you know, talk to them and things, and I can help them enjoy what I do by creating a really positive environment at the gym. It's really welcoming, even if you've never been to the gym. I really pride myself that you can come in and like train in a small group with other riders, some of which have been with me for like 5 years now, and you straight away you're welcomed in. Even if they're lifting twice as much as you, it's still an environment where you can enjoy training, you can develop your physically, not be judged, and in between sets you can talk about mullet versus full 29 and all that nonsense, you know, which will put you right to sleep. But
yeah, totally. Cool. All right, we're going to do, it's a fairly short climb, so we're going to do two climbs,
Happy
two
days.
descents. Do you know what this trail is called?
Yeah, I think we're going into Furlough. It's one of the many lockdown trails around here.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a good one.
You go first, let's see it. I better turn this on actually. That's on now? It's on now. Okay. Sorry? Ah. A bit of a drop there. Ah. Got fly in my mouth. Oh, it's fun riding this. Fun riding this bike again after.
So,
Down there.
huh?
That one.
That one?
Yeah.
Of course.
The next one if you want.
Yeah, sorry.
Whichever you're comfortable with.
I just missed the turn basically. Just do this one, shall we?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go, we can get in here.
Alright. Some trail confusion. Oh, it's fun riding this bike after the XC bike. So much more aggressive. Tight.
Whoa, where's the trail? There's a lot of leaves here.
A lot of hidden rocks.
Whoa.
Can barely see the trail.
Woo. It's pretty wild.
It's fun.
Bad line, Ben.
Ah,
bad
so
line.
nice to be out on the bike.
Whoa. Sorry. Oh, shoulder barge.
Tight. Quite a different type of riding. Don't get this in the Tweed Valley. This is quite wild actually.
Yeah. These Welsh boys know how to build a trail. Woo. Oh.
Nice, that was fun.
Oh man. That's sick, isn't it?
That was fun, yeah.
Oh,
Oh, it's
man.
nice to be riding.
Oh,
That was sweet. What was that one called?
I think that's furlough.
It did get quite wild for the button there.
Yeah.
That was great.
Oh,
You were very silent, guys. There was a lot of concentration there.
Yeah, I was.
yeah. I
up
don't
a
think
bit.
I released my brakes the whole time.
Okay, sweet. That was fun.
Now we're on different sides. Is this all right, or is this
This
going to be weird? Like when you
it
swap
does
sides,
feel like
when
it,
you
no.
swap sides in the bed with your missus, you're like, oh, this is weird.
Yeah, super weird. It does feel. I think I'm usually on the left. Actually.
No
Okay, I'll
worries.
see if I can still do it.
We'll see.
Still do it from the right. So Ben, I'm super interested in your your time in the army, and then like how you found. Because I know a lot of soldiers are attracted to the army because, for similar reasons to like we were attracted to mountain biking, they want
Yeah.
purpose, especially racing. It's got that clear purpose. You got that kind of social thing, and then you're also getting this. It's exciting, it's thrilling, and it's an adventure. And then I know a lot of soldiers struggle sometimes coming back, going back to normal life.
Mm-hmm.
How was your experience of that, and did you think mountain biking and training played any role in helping you sort of back to
I think
civilian
probably.
life?
I mean, for me, like fitness, exercise, training, whatever you want to call it, has always been a big part of keeping me sane, even if I realised it or not. I think it's only as you get a bit older you start to appreciate how you go about looking after yourself. And so, yeah, certainly, when in those first couple of years out of the army and I was living in London, it's a completely different environment to what I was used to. And yeah, I think mountain biking, it certainly just gave me an escape, Morgs, where on a weekend you get out of the city, into the woods, so like we are now, like nature, fresh air, away from the tall buildings and the busyness and all of that nonsense. And I didn't realise it at the time, but certainly getting back into mountain biking, but also enjoying the outdoors as well, like going to walk up Snowdon or going rock climbing with my missus and stuff like that. Those things, yeah, there's those similar things that attract you, like attracts you to like life in the military or something as well.
Yeah.
There's definitely that overlap. I think the place where the two things diverge a bit are where a lot of outdoorsy people wouldn't like that loss of kind of freedom that you get to a certain extent, because you very much give yourself to the military. And like I told you, I lived in Germany and Cyprus. I didn't get any fucking choice about that.
Yeah.
You just get told, oh yeah, in 6 months you're moving to Cyprus, and I don't care if you've got a girlfriend or whatever. You know, it's just it is what it is. So there's pushes and pulls, but yeah, mountain biking and just the outdoors really, I think.
The outdoors
really helped.
more than
I think at that time,
more than like structured sort of training, it was more just about getting outside. Like that was.
Yeah, I think so, because I think for me it was more the outdoors was the critical bit, getting out of the city, because I've never really been a city person. I ended up in London because that's where my girlfriend was, and I moved in with her.
Yeah.
And you know, now she's my wife.
Same.
You know, so, but yeah, so I think, and that's the other part of getting out, making the transition, is if you've got good supportive people around you, and I was very lucky to have that. So yeah, it was pretty.
So it wasn't too
no
big a factor.
No.
And then so we talked about you started personal training.
Yeah.
Shortly after, and then you started MTB Strength Factory.
Yep.
So tell us about, like, we talked a little bit as well about you work with some racers, you work with some sort of dads looking to. What are the commonalities actually? That would be maybe an interesting question.
I think
what are the commonalities?
The common
between
thing is,
the
and this is
and
something that I talked about recently on Downtime podcasts. The common thing is that they're all humans, you know. They all need to do some sort of like squatting and some sort of single leg. They all need to push, they all need to pull. But they've also all got, and this will sound really surprising for the ex-army person, but they've all got like feelings and hopes and goals. They all want to achieve something there. It's just different things. And they've all got, I guess, fears and anxieties about life and about fitness, or just sort of, they're more similar than you realise. And you know, it's just that the pro athlete lifts a bit more, or they're a bit more coordinated, so they can do some more advanced exercises that would really challenge someone else maybe. And the pro athlete can dedicate more time to training and recovery, so they can come 3 times a week and ride 4 times a week, whereas 45-year-old dad of 2, you know, might ride once on the weekend, see me once, and maybe do a midweek night ride in the winter, you know.
How do you look at that? I know I've heard some people talk about like a stress bucket.
Yeah.
You ever that, you know, and with
Yeah,
training load.
Yeah.
You can only put, if you're doing even like, you know, you got a really busy week at work or something, like it will also contribute to you possibly overdoing it. How do you look at that? Just taking too much
out of the tank, really.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no doubt that exercise, especially stuff like this, like riding at a pace like this where you can talk, is an undeniably positive thing, you know.
Yeah.
I'm never saying don't do that, but you know, when you're tired, stressed, overworked, and you're trying to do really intense training, then something's gonna break, you know, mentally or physically. And so, yeah, exercise, like we all know that the science is there, but you don't even need the science because we can all feel it. Everyone listening to this probably, and all of us here, feel what riding our bike gives us, and you know what exercise does for you in general. And it's positive, but it's like anything, it's about balance, you know, finding that balance in life where you can be healthy, fit, strong, but also have healthy relationships with the people around you.
Yeah.
And you know, don't let your work grind you into the ground.
Yeah, totally.
Like it's not motocross.
How much? Because I would quite like to get a coach and because left to my own devices, I kind of just start just ramping things up until
just riding,
or just like in the gym or running. I like and I would kind of, it's quite good to just have someone to be like, okay, yeah, you're good, you should crack on, or someone be like, no, you're tired, you should.
There's people who can do that. There's a lot of technology these days as well that can guide the over enthusiastic athlete, because what you're saying is not uncommon, you know. That was me in my 20s, and that is plenty of people that I see now who they just you know, they love riding, so ride all the time. I'm like, when was the last time you took a day off or a couple of days off, or you know, go and do a yoga class or have a hot bath with some candles, you know? Serious, just don't send me a picture. And because I never want people to be like scared of doing stuff, or I never tell people that what you're doing is wrong or bad, you know. It's not like that. It's just, you know, how can we just make it a bit better so that you can enjoy it today, enjoy it tomorrow, enjoy it next year.
Yeah.
But you've also got, you know, did you say you're 26?
26, yeah.
Just a nipper, yeah, in your prime, more.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot more scope and a lot more room to manoeuvre than me at 41, you know, so, and that's cool, it is what it is. And at 41, I'd have more room to manoeuvre if I didn't have my kids and a wife. If I was just like living in a bachelor pad and all I had to do was like work and look after myself and train and exercise, then I could do a lot more. But you know, I don't want that.
You got to accept, exactly.
But it's just this is the situation.
It sounded like, you know, talking about your early experience of the racing, you just had this very healthy attitude that was very much focused on, you know, you're away with your dad, you're enjoying it anyway, not too focused on the results or anything. And it sounds as well like you mentioned on our last climb, you know, your gym is a friendly, welcoming place, and it's not about, you're not mean to the people you're working with.
No egos.
So, and it's about, is that like a focus for you? You know, like, because it's easy once you start to structure training for it to become about numbers and, I don't know, just about this improvements in little areas that maybe aren't that important to the big picture. How is that something that you think about quite a lot?
Yeah, I mean, even with the person who's new to gym and nervous, we can still just monitor their progress, even without calling it like testing, you know. So Hutch here filming, Contour Collective Megastar and Enduro World Series pinner, is an elite level athlete, and we're going to do some very specific and defined testing, and that's generally how it goes. And then we do more structured training and then retest. All the numbers are up, happy days, give Ben a pay rise, go and win a race. But for Joe Bloggs, you know, that 45-year-old dad or whatever, we don't even need to test. It's just simple. We just keep our training diary, and on day one he's just doing squats with his body weight, or just with 10 kilos here, and he'll do 3 sets of 10, and he feels he's got sore legs for 3 days. And then 6 weeks later he's doing 3 sets of 10 with 20 kilos, and he's not really sore. And it's like, you don't need to call it testing, you just sort of keep track. And you know, when we start off, he's doing 3 or 5 press ups because maybe he's a couple of kilos overweight, not as strong as he used to be. Excuse me. And then with some consistent training, you know, maybe drops a couple of kilos, gets a bit stronger, and then what does it say on today's training log? Oh, I did 12. And so it doesn't need, it can still be that positive, relaxed environment where people grow, but without it feeling like that, you know?
Yeah, totally. What about with your serious athletes then? How do you keep it fun? How do you keep it fun with them?
So,
like maybe your professional athletes where
yeah,
it does really matter.
yeah. So I still, basically, I try, because it's not always easy, to meet the athlete where they're at. So try and coach them the way they want to be coached. So some love numbers, sports science, you know, they've maybe done their own reading and they want a bit more of your, that sort of thing. Others who are very good riders and very good athletes, not really interested so much in that. And so the approach changes, and you know, I'll try and gently guide. If I think we're way out, I'll be like, look, you want to do this, how about we just do this and what you want to do, you know. And it's just about, that's where it comes down to being a good coach. Is, yes, it's about writing a program and all that stuff, but it's about communicating and building relationships.
Yeah. Which is the same as you said as well when you were an officer.
Well, yeah, but it's the same in anyone's job, isn't it?
Yeah,
like
exactly. Yeah.
Your job, you're starting in advertising. Yes, I'm sure if you come up with a cameras have stopped, or one of them stopped. This one looks like it's still recording. Is it the one on your? That one's still flashing like it's recording. Maybe it's the one in your head. It stopped.
It wasn't on.
There was definitely a.
That one's still recording. We'll just carry on.
Yeah, it looks like it is.
Okay, that's good. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so you know, you can come up with an amazing advert, which is obviously brilliant, and it makes some money for someone. But if you don't build relationships and communicate well with the people in your office, your peers, the people above and below you, then you're not going to enjoy your job, and maybe your progression in it and ability to do it well over long term is hampered, you know?
Yeah, whenever you're working with other people, obviously the communication is like super important.
Yeah, it's the soft skills, I think, that, again, people are like, listen to this ex-army guy, like, 1 minute he's talking about Iraq and then he's talking about soft skills, and like, sometimes your clients just need a hug and a chat, you know, after a rough week. And sometimes they need fucking beasting until they turn green.
How does that compare with, you mentioned you have kids?
Yeah.
How old are your kids?
So 20 months and 4.5. Just started school.
So I suppose they're not maybe like old enough yet that you've, you know, had much experience like putting them into like classes or whatever, like guiding them. And
well, yeah, I mean, I still, we're on a tangent here, but yeah, I still have strong views about parenting, and you know, when I think about how I want to bring them up, and how I want people to describe them, I'd like the idea that they're both kind people, but also like robust, which seems to be the opposite of how the youth of today is portrayed in the media. Now, I don't know if it's true or not, and obviously it varies massively. And you know what? I wouldn't want to be a teenager now with social media and stuff. It's absolutely savage, especially possibly worse for girls. And when I come to navigate that in 6 years or whatever, like, whew,
new challenge.
It's brutal, yeah. And I don't have all the answers, but I think the groundwork starts early.
Absolutely, yeah.
And exposing them to risk, and you know, like Daisy, my 4.5-year-old girl, like I'll let her climb like really high in these trees in the park, and like the other mums are all saying no and stuff like that to their kids, and I'm like, you know, she falls out of this tree, what's going to happen? Like, I might catch her, probably won't. Let's face it.
Yeah.
But she might break her arm or something, which would suck and it'd be horrible, and I would absolutely hate that. But really, that's probably about as bad as it's going to get, really. So, but look at her. Look how much she's learning, and
Yeah, you got to weigh up the sort of
Yeah,
the benefits, especially the accumulative like benefits. So like
yeah,
it's not just this one experience she's having, but it's like
yeah,
a multitude of different experiences
Yeah.
she's having where she's exposing herself to things that scare her,
yeah. And then
and she's been allowed to.
Yeah, and then she has to deal with the fear. It's like, took her to the skate park, and I'm not telling her she's got to. It's not like some pushy motocross dad. You've got to do the big roll in, Daisy, you know, off the fun box. It's like 8 foot tall, roll in with a little transition on it. But she's like, Daddy, can I do that? I think I can do it. I'm like, yeah, no worries. And we go up there and I'll talk to her, and she doesn't do it and comes down. It's fine, you know, she knows I still love her, and think she's awesome. And if she does do it, she kind of gets the same reaction, you know, whether she did it or not. Because, you know, but if she, either way, she's taken a situation and weighed it up and made a decision. So yeah.
Yeah, I suppose the reason I mentioned your kids is like it's really easy with sport, I imagine with a lot of coaches, to kind of be pushing people. A lot of parents really push their kids, and they do it to, you know, in a kind of militaristic kind of way, because they think it's going to make them tough and they're going to be, you know, strong people because of it. But oftentimes it just, you know, if you're like, you just make the thing you're trying to give them. So if it's like mountain biking or something, you make that thing, maybe you lose the fun of it, and so it's like, well, why am I doing this? Because you told me to. Like, that doesn't.
Yeah. Across a million sports or whatever, you know, every year thousands of kids are getting burnt out by pushy parents, and it's interesting as well that,
or maybe pushy coaches even as well.
Yeah,
like
that
a lot
too.
Of athletes.
Yeah, and parents and coaches need to work together and have a similar outlook, you know. And anyone thinking about sending their kid to a coach, you both need to be speaking the same language, which is the child's happiness and welfare always comes first, in my opinion.
Do you work with many younger athletes?
You know, at the moment, I've got a real gap, which is a bit annoying because I really enjoy it.
You have done in the past, though.
Yeah, so my most recent young athlete, I started with, you know, Dennis Luffman on Contour.
Oh yeah.
On the Canyon Collective.
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, Canyon
Different collective. Yeah. So I started with him when he was about 14.
Oh wow.
And did a few years with him basically, which was brilliant. I loved it on a personal and professional level, like seeing him grow and develop.
Yeah, he's getting some good.
And he's a sick rider.
Yeah, brilliant rider.
And a real nice, I was going to say nice kid, he's probably 17 now. And he's massive, but yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, and how does his, like, I know myself, like, when I was, I don't know, 14, 15, I got into this kind of development program for mountain biking, and
oh wow.
we were doing, it was great at the time before the financial crisis. There was I think about, you know, you're talking about your club at university, what difference that made. Like, I had a high school mountain bike club for the same reasons as you. Like, it's hard to, you know, your parents are busy and like going, their first priority wasn't always like, they had the time, they, you know, well, my dad would, but anyway, it wasn't like, there's a lot of other things going on. This mountain bike club and this teacher meant that you could go bench rest and stuff at the weekends.
Yeah.
Anyway, got into this program, which I was fortunate that there was funding for at the time, and then we're training 3 times a week. Some of it was pretty hard, but it was pretty fun, and it was very much like what I wanted to be doing.
Yeah.
And it very much like settled me. I was quite like just, I don't know, lost in lots of different ways, and quite like had a lot of energy and wanted a direction for it.
Didn't like sitting down and being quiet
yeah,
at school.
exactly. And so like it's a good balance for me. Like, it was really hard and there was a lot of structure to it, but it was like gave me so much. Although kind of lost the balance, left my own devices when I left school and was just training to compete at the World Cups and stuff. I did too much and kind of just burnt myself out, and kind of had to take a big break from from racing after that. So how do you, when you're working with these, because it's a really important age, you know, like the things your formative years, like how do you keep, how does that differ from the adults you work with? Does it differ at all?
I don't know. They're still, they're kind of little humans in a way, aren't they? And with hopes, dreams and fears. And so the only thing is, I'd say, is that normally with an athlete there's two of you pretty much in the coach relationship, whereas with that situation there's three of you, or maybe four, with both parents, you know. And sometimes, you know, in a session away from the parents, and I'm not trying to undermine anyone, you know, everyone's relaxed, you're comfortable with each other, and you just ask them how they are and how's school and how are you still enjoying training? Do you want me to change the sessions for you? Do you need a break from training, you know? And similarly, I will have conversations with the parent away from the kid. Just give them a call or a quick chat at the end of training, or if I see them, just, yeah, how do you think they're getting on? Are you happy with how it's going?
So it's like the training is kind of layered on top of the person first, and like their hopes, dreams and fears.
And like, basically you start with a junior, especially junior and like youth bike riders. Often they found bikes because they don't like the mainstream sports like football, hockey, rugby, tennis. They don't like team sport, and so often they're amazing on a bike but not that coordinated off a bike. And that goes for fully grown adults as well, to a surprising degree. You take the bike away and they're like,
yeah, oh. I know a guy, Crystal.
Yeah,
you give him a,
I'm sure,
ask him to kick a football.
Yeah, and they're all over the shop. And so the first thing you're trying to do is just get them to move a bit better.
Yeah,
get them to be coordinated, especially while they're growing as well. They have a growth spurt and it takes time for your body to catch up and actually be able to control, because all your limbs are further away now. And so you're making loads of progress, and then you realise you're like, they're getting less coordinated, but oh shit, they've grown an inch in 6 weeks.
No wonder.
And then you know why. So then you like step it back a bit, reduce the weights, maybe go back to single leg, and it's a really interesting cycle. And it's really rewarding, and I'd love to work with some up and coming young like downhill or enduro racer, or BMX or anything like that. Really, it'd be sick.
Yeah, totally. I suppose it's working with, you know, teenagers is quite similar then to working with adults with jobs and stuff, in that you just being aware of the other things in their life that are going on that's going to impact like how they train.
It's like, oh, you got your GCSEs this summer and you want to do a load of racing. Well, we need to have a talk, all three of us, you know, and how's this going to work so that you enjoy your riding, enjoy your racing. And if your racing doesn't work out, those GCSEs, they might be quite important. So let's not completely fuck
that's the priority.
Yeah, let's not completely drop the ball there.
Yeah.
And you know, so it's just this conversation, and you find that
the right balance in the middle.
You know?
It's interesting because it would be so easy. I know, like, my tendency often is to be like, okay, cool, like we're just gonna like do everything. But when you're doing everything, you're always gonna sacrifice, you know, something. It might be the case that whatever was your priority just diminished because you tried to do like too much at once. Or whatever.
Yeah. But on the other hand, set the goals high.
Yeah.
You know, go for it. Like, and I don't, because I do preach a bit of a message of like moderation and stuff, but I just want to remind people, if people are still watching this far in, like, you still got to work hard.
Yeah.
Yes, we want to play the long game, but there's still going to be those sessions that are just going to hurt you to the depths of your soul. There's still going to be those sessions that leave you sore for 2 days because you've trained really hard. There's still going to be this outlet where I want to be the best racer or whatever it is. So I'm going to eat well, I'm going to go to bed early, I'm going to focus, you know? And I'm not saying don't do that. And I quite often feel myself having to like clarify that.
Yeah. So
people don't think that, oh, Ben's the guy who, they don't really train very hard. And if you're having a bad day, you just hold hands on the mats, you know? It's like, because like, that's not how it is. But I just want to like preach this more holistic approach.
Yeah.
Preach is the wrong word. I don't want to preach.
It's just
anything.
a hard dichotomy always between working hard and focusing, and then also bearing in mind all the.
Exactly.
I suppose that's the benefit of a coach. That's like would be my motivation to get a coach, is just have someone to have that conversation with.
And that's
it's
what
a hard
it is.
one to have yourself.
It's all about conversations.
Yeah.
You just back and forwards, and sometimes, you know, the rider gets it a bit wrong, sometimes I get it a bit wrong, sometimes we go off a bit down the wrong path. But as long as you have enough conversations, you realise, don't you, and then you steer it back to where you need to be, where you're both going in the right direction, both working towards that rider's goals, not my goals, it's their goals, to be a racer, or even just for that dad to enjoy riding 45k around the Hard Rock Enduro, which could be that's a big goal for a lot of people. That's a tough old loop, you know, especially with a hangover. Yeah. So it's like, you know, and that's an amazing goal to have, and we can help you get there.
Yeah.
It's just a series of conversations and then consistent work over a period of time.
Yeah.
Some of that work is easy, some of it's moderate, some of it's really dirty hard.
Yeah, interesting.
It's life, isn't it?
Yeah, that is it. Yeah, it's just
training's like life.
Finding that middle ground, exactly. Yeah. Cool. All right, we're gonna do another descent.
Drop in.
Same one or?
Let's do the next one along.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah, awesome. I don't know what it's called, but as I remember, it's got some nice turns. COVID, nice. Yeah, basically it's brown, it goes down the hill, and after it goes left, it goes right, and after it goes right, it goes left.
Awesome.
Simple.
The last one was fun. I haven't ridden this in a while. It's so great to be out riding.
You've been e-being a lot.
I actually haven't. I've had a cross country. Well, I haven't ridden that much. I had the Trance, which is really good fun. Chris was actually that was the last bike I rode. Cool. But I've got just the full cross country Trance, which is really good fun. But like this bike is just like those big, just like really throwing it into the turns and stuff. It's fun. Nice. Fresh tires as well is awesome.
Oh, nice. Like hen's teeth.
So I'm psyched. Let's do it.
Right, let's do it. Go down this one then.
Sweet. Oh no. Okay, riding the same trail so far. I was unclipped for that bit last time. So nice to be out on the bike. Whoa. So far. Oh, this is where it's different. Went down on the right there last time.
Ooh.
Yes. Oh, you kind of
wailing ruts.
They're so loose.
Oh. Can't see the trail for the leaves.
It's hard to stay.
Oh, come on, man.
Controlled.
Oh. Oh man, it's amateur hour here.
A little bit here. Nice to get that right.
Whoa, fucking
hell. Oh.
That's tricky.
The trials needed there. Easy trails to lose control on because they're so steep. And the turns aren't, it's not really clear where you're supposed to be going. I'm just following Ben.
Whoa! Oh, what's happening here? Oh, drop! Needed more commitment. Where's this go?
Could have got. I was very tempted to send that.
Oh, puddle. Sender. Oh. Whoa, come on, Ben. I think it's this way. Yeah. Woo!
Ah, fun.
Is it this way out?
I think so, yeah. We'll just wrap it up here.
Mate, that was sick.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Mate, thank you. It's been awesome.
Yeah,
Cheers.
Yeah, it's been fun to ride here, and
Hopefully we'll get for a ride up in Scotland sometime.
yeah, exactly. It's gonna be
Yeah,
nice.
nice.
Anyway, thanks.
Cheers.
All right, I really hope you enjoyed that conversation with Ben. If you did, just whatever, move on to another video. We don't care. No, we do sort of care, but apparently we're not pushing the message anymore. So just check out some of our other videos, maybe. Yeah, just have a nice day. See you in the next one. There's more to follow. Thank you so much for watching. See you next week.